It was a record crowd at Peden Stadium in Athens, Ohio, the first time the West Virginia Mountaineers traveled there in 76 years. That record crowd of more than 26,000 had a day to remember, unless you wore gold and blue to the stadium. Then it's a day you'll want to forget. And we're here to react to it all on this postgame edition of the Gold and Blue Nation podcast presented by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination. Nick Farrell here following West Virginia's 17-10 loss against reigning MAC champion Ohio University. West Virginia, the theme was unforced errors in the first half and the inability to capitalize on errors in the second half. And so, to get some insight on how the game went down, we welcome in Sydney Cariel, our Mountaineer football insider, who is inside the Ohio Bobcats practice facility in Athens. She woke up this morning at about 5 a.m., drove to Athens, anchored Mountaineer game day, covered the game. That shows, by the way, 2 hours of live pregame coverage if you didn't tune in. Covered a game at 4 o'clock and is now here with us just after 8:30 Eastern time, and then is going to book it back to Morgantown and hopefully get home sometime before midnight once all's said and done. So, Sid, it's been a heck of a day for you. We appreciate you jumping on the podcast, but your reaction initially to what went down today in Athens?
I think the 17 unanswered points that were scored by Ohio and going into halftime just was kind of like a red alert, if you will. It felt like you could feel kind of the energy sucked out of WVU's sideline. And the momentum really on Ohio's, and the fans were really into it. You know, the whole stadium stayed packed the whole game, which I thought was really cool. It was a really fun environment. I'll say that. But when West Virginia went down and scored first, that kind of felt like, okay, they made the first punch. Here we go. They finally got their offense going here. But then it just felt like the offense stalled and just the whole game could never get anything rolling at all. They just were not clicking on anything, not even the run game that we saw did so well in week one. So, it was just tough all around for the Mountaineers.
There's a big reason for that, the offense stalling, and we are going to get into that here in a little bit. But, Sid, let's go through this one chronologically because, as you mentioned, It looked good for West Virginia initially. First offensive drive stalled out. Defense played really well. Jaheim White rips off that 32-yard touchdown run as the Mountaineers take an early 7-0 lead. But after that, Ohio, with those 17 unanswered points, benefited from some just major miscues by West Virginia. I think there were two takeaways from last week's game against Robert Morris, because how many takeaways can there really be when you play against an FCS opponent that you beat by 6 touchdowns, right? Those two takeaways were the discipline penalties were a problem. Coach Rodriguez said we can't have West Virginia beat West Virginia, right? That was a direct quote from the podium and something that he had said throughout fall camp and even spring practices. So that's number one. And then the other thing was the turnovers, that West Virginia had 3 consecutive drives and with fumbles. And Robert Morris recovered those fumbles. And I think on this very show, one of us, Sydney, and it was probably not you, said if a team turns the ball over on 3 consecutive possessions, that team is very likely not going to win any games.
That's probably true.
Yeah, well, that take certainly was freezing cold, and we'll discuss that here in a little bit later. But let's start first half Ohio scoring. Here's what happened. Ohio's first scoring drive, West Virginia with a roughing the passer penalty. Believe it was on a 3rd down. That leads to an Ohio field goal. OU's second scoring drive, defensive holding in the red zone, leads to a C.A. Bangura touchdown run 3 plays later. It's likely that Ohio was going to put points on the board on that possession, but the holding penalty
maybe held them to 3.
Exactly. The holding penalty makes it 6.
Yeah.
And so West Virginia.
Right. Yeah.
And so instead of it potentially being 7-6, Sid, it's then 10-7 Ohio, and the Bobcats have the lead. Then, very quickly after that, West Virginia goes a quick 3 and out, and Ohio's third scoring drive comes after the 2-minute timeout because a pass interference flag led to Parker Navarro throwing a nice ball down the field. 3 plays, 74 yards, and just like that, Ohio has a 17-7 lead going into the locker room. And as you mentioned, Sid, it just seemed like the air had kind of come out of West Virginia's tires, so to speak, at that point.
Yeah, it just, you could even just seeing them and seeing they looked defeated, and it was only halftime. So you kind of thought, okay, remember last week, Coach Rodriguez said, "No, I didn't go in there and yell the paint off the walls." What's the saying? I'm so bad at sayings, but you know what I mean.
Take the paint off the walls, I think is what it was. Yeah.
Not yell the paint off. You know what I mean.
He very well could be capable of doing that, potentially.
Either one. But remember last week he said he did not do that at halftime. This week you have to have a feeling that maybe he did, especially just with the environment and everything here and all the hype surrounding this game. So maybe he did go in there and kind of fire them up and shake them, wake them up a little bit. I don't know, go out and get 3 points on the board. But yeah, and it wasn't like the entire crowd was against you either. You had the Mountaineer fans were loud and in the stadium. So it was a good, you could hear them loud on defense, all the things. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just it was just tough. It was a tough game.
At that point, Sid, West Virginia's offense has started to show the signs of stalling out. I know WVU did score a field goal on its opening possession of the second half to make it 17-10. But a big reason why West Virginia's offense sputtered late in this game was because it played the entire second half without running back Jaheim White. And unfortunately, that is our turning point in the game, presented by First Green Mortgage. Your home is the heart of what we do. Visit them online at fgm.bank. And the reason it is because once White exited the game, West Virginia was not able to run the football at all. And WVU in the game, 26 carries for 72 yards. Check that, 28 carries for 72 yards. That's 2.6 yards per carry. Jaheim White had 40 of those yards on 6 touches. He got 32 of them in 1 touchdown run. So that means the rest of the team averaged roughly 1.5 yards per carry. Shy of that, in fact. 22 carries for 32 yards for the remainder of the team. Third quarter rushing stat. I'm not going to rub the salt in the wound of Mountaineer fans and tell you what that stat was. I'll say it a different way. It was 1 shy of 10 carries for 13 yards. It was even worse in the fourth quarter. 7 carries for 1 yard. That included a few sacks. But man, West Virginia just unable to run the football. We'll hear from Coach Rodriguez here in a little bit about the decision to take Nico Marchiol out of the game for a period of time in the second half. Jalen Henderson, who is a mobile quarterback, into the game, just trying to find a spark, just trying to find a way to move the football, because West Virginia was just incapable of doing that in the second half. And really, Henderson wasn't the answer. It didn't go much better with him behind center than it did with Marchiol. But yeah, with White out of the offense, it just seemed like West Virginia could not move the ball.
You just didn't have that explosive runner that Jaheim brings to the team. Clay Ash, he got some attempts in there. He tried, and he did have a couple runs where he tried to, somehow get his way out of a jam and pick up a few more yards if he could. And Rodney Gallagher got in there and carried the ball a little bit too. But you saw that you didn't have that guy who could just turn on the jets. So that was tough. That was also a tough scene for Jaheim, like the way he went down, because he was horse collared and face masked at the same time on the sideline, and so he fell awkwardly, and then he was laying face down and kind of needed help to roll over. And when they helped him up and walked him to the sideline, which then I couldn't see what happened after that, but he didn't put any weight on both legs. He had to get helped off. He didn't put any weight. So we saw him after the game, and his left leg, I believe, was wrapped up pretty good from top of thigh all the way down. So hopefully we find more of an update next week. But yeah, like what you said, Nick, it was a huge turning point and a huge piece to this offense that was missing. And it was apparent when he wasn't in the game, that was just a huge piece that WVU needed, especially in the second half.
Absolutely so, Sid. And it's worth noting that after the game, Coach Rodriguez said he had not received an update from his medical staff on the status of White, who did not return to the game in the second half. We're hoping to get an update on him later this week. Remember that WVU football's press conference is on Tuesday. Yeah,
sorry, Nick, to cut you off. We did see him in crutches, and he looked like physically, everything looked okay, not in pain or anything. So hopefully that's a little bit of a positive thing. I don't know.
Yeah, we certainly will see, and it is a subject of great importance to the coaching staff and the team for West Virginia, because White was going to be such an integral part of this team. But not just that. Coach Rodriguez has noted dating back to fall camp that WVU just doesn't have a ton of depth at that position, doesn't have a ton of capable depth, really. And so White was going to be the bell cow for this West Virginia offense. If he misses any period of time for WVU beyond this week's second half, that's a major loss for West Virginia. Now, do want to quickly touch on the second half before we send it to the podium to hear Coach Rodriguez's post-game thoughts. Sid, the defense was really good. The defense, in fact, forced 3 consecutive turnovers and 3 interceptions. You had Darian Lewis with a pick, Ben Cutter with a pick, Chase Wilson with a pick, 3 straight drives. How did the West Virginia offense fare when it got the ball back? Offense goes 3 and out after each one of those takeaways. One drive, WVU gained 0 yards. Another drive, WVU offense lost 14 yards in 3 plays. So going back to that thought about the Robert Morris game, it is certainly possible for a college football team to turn it over on 3 consecutive possessions and still win a football game. Ohio University just did it, and West Virginia's offense had the chances to tie the game, maybe even win the game, because of the way that the defense played down the stretch. Zach Alley's unit had Parker Navarro, who is a very, very good quarterback, by the way, had Parker Navarro making bad decisions. The only time that Navarro was really effective in the second half was when he was running the football. When he was passing the ball, he was very suspect. But West Virginia's offense just couldn't capitalize. Yeah,
they kind of, for the most part, stopped their run game, too, in the second half. But I think it's important to note on those 3 interceptions, it was in decent field position, too. It's not like the Mountaineers had to drive the entire length of the field to get into the end zone. They only needed a couple first downs and they would have been in the red zone right away. So it just seemed like it wasn't a tall task at hand for the Mountaineers to go down and tie this thing up. And they couldn't even get a first down with those turnovers that the defense got for you. You have to think too, I think it was a big kudos to the defense. I don't know if kudos is the right word, but you think about them, they just went out there, they got a turnover, they go down, they sit on the bench, take a little break. And it was a short break because they were right back out there within 5 minutes, and it happened 3 straight times. And so you can imagine WVU's defense probably was getting a little tired out there, but they were able to hold their own and keep the score within reach. I mean, they didn't let anything up. So I don't know, just the offense just felt like it kind of let them down today. Yeah, watching the broadcast, by the way, Sid, when Lewis had that interception, the first of those 3 consecutive picks, it looked initially like he might have a clear path to take it to the house. It was kind of like on a comeback route, right? And he just picked it off and was going down the sidelines. And when you look back at that moment, it was clear that he needed to score in order for West Virginia to really have a shot. Like, the defense was going to have to do it all just because of the situation of WVU not having really ability to move it offensively. Yeah, and I meant to mention this earlier, but Lewis, I kind of thought this was a huge moment. In my head at the time, I'm like, oh my goodness, this could be the turning point of the game, because the play, maybe 2 or 3 plays before, don't exactly quote me on that, but it was the same drive. He got a penalty for pass interference, which then gave Ohio the first down. So it was like, oh my gosh, you kept the play alive, and I believe it was 3rd down. So Lewis made a mental mistake, a mental error. You didn't need to do that, because I think the pass was even going out of bounds. Like, it wasn't that great of a throw. But anyways, hands on him. They get the first down. 2 plays later, he gets the pick. And I almost felt like, oh my gosh, he redeemed himself for that mental error. Here we go. Offense go down and get points on the board. And obviously, I don't have to keep saying that over and over. But I did think that was maybe a good moment for Lewis, that personally for him, just being able to, you made them that mistake, and then 2 plays later did a good thing for your team. Absolutely. So, Sid, a quick note here, too. I just wanted to mention a quick and unofficial injury recap. Of course, again, we're expecting to get updates on these guys Tuesday during the team's weekly media session. We've already mentioned White and the significance of his injury. Jaden Bray was also carted off the field. He was spotted by the ESPNU cameras leaving the game in the second half. And then, Sid, am I correct, too, that linebacker Reed Carrico also left the game with an injury? Yeah, and he left early on in the first quarter. I think I texted in our group chat that he was walking off the field. He walked off, which I don't take that as you will. At least he was able to walk off on his own. But yeah, first quarter and he didn't come back. So hopefully we find out more about that. When I saw him walk off, I was thinking, oh man, because he also had a big game in week 1 and is a core piece in that defense. So I guess that's just telling that the defense was able to make adjustments in the second half with one of their stars out.
Yeah, certainly disappointing for Cariel, a guy who's a second-year Mountaineer and grew up in Ironton, Ohio, to have to exit a game in Ohio with an injury. 2 more quick notes. We already mentioned Lewis was one of the bright spots for the defense other than that penalty. He had 9 total tackles, and of course he had the pick. Fred Perry, the nickel, he was all over the place. Team's leading tackler with 10, including 6 solo stops. He also had 2 tackles for loss and a sack. Chase Wilson getting some extended work too. Ben Cutter had an interception. Chase Wilson had an interception. The linebackers were pretty active in containing Navarro. They had to be because of how mobile Navarro is. So there definitely were positive signs from the West Virginia defense after allowing those touchdowns in quick succession before halftime, coming back out, playing really well, and putting up a goose egg both in the third and fourth quarters. But again, the story of this one is that the offense just didn't get the job done when it had those opportunities in the second half. All right, we're going to step aside for a quick break. When we come back, we're going to listen to post-game thoughts from head coach Rich Rodriguez. In fact, we'll send you straight to those post-game thoughts after this quick word from our sponsor, Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, home of the same-day smile.
The reason I came to the practice was because I had some teeth extracted and I wanted to get some replacements for it. We did a treatment plan to see how many implants they were going to place, and now I'm actually just waiting to get the crowns. The thing I like the most about coming here, I was greeted with a smile, everything ran smooth, and that they were really going to do what I wanted them to do to make my smile a little better. They're some of the best doctors, and you will get good quality care.
Searching for a mortgage lender that's 100% local, personal, and focused on home loans? First Green Mortgage has been serving West Virginia for more than 35 years, and they can assist you with every step of your home ownership journey. Visit them in Bridgeport or Morgantown or at fgm.bank.
So, Coach, just give us an explanation, especially offensively. Just didn't seem to work much after the second drive.
Yeah, I'm just very disappointed. Starts with me. Told the guys I failed them this week. I thought we had a good week of practice, thought we were ready to play, and we weren't. Didn't execute. A lot of things to work on, and I knew there'd be some growing pains. But I'm gonna do a better job, and we'll get better from this.
Better job, but you lost a lot
Just
of players too. Because that doesn't make things easier without Jaheim and Jaden.
Yeah, we got banged up a little bit. The guys were playing hard, and the guys went in there and battled. But as I said, I want it to hurt, and it's going to hurt all of us. I think it really does for the next 20 hours or so, and then we know who's next. So we've got to get to work, and I've got to get these guys ready to go, and they'll be ready to play next Saturday.
What do you tell the guys after a game like that to make sure that no air is kind of deflated out of the balloon, so to speak?
Well, just what I said. Whether you win or lose, after 24 hours, you got to move on. I think the biggest thing we got to do with the losses and the wins, but the losses, you got to learn as much as you can from it. Like everybody. Players, coaches, and everybody in the program.
Coach, what went into the thought process of putting Jalen in and then going back to Nico later? And
just trying to get a spark.
Next week's starting quarterback.
Give me 24 hours first, will you? I don't blame you asking, but I try to get a little spark, particularly maybe with some of the quarterback run stuff, and didn't make. But wasn't Jalen or Nico's fault. It's more mine. So we'll evaluate the film, try to get some, see what went wrong and what we can fix to get better.
Any thoughts on the pass down to Vaughn on the goal line that they looked at and said?
I didn't see it. I couldn't tell. I didn't know if it was close enough to review. Obviously, that was a big play, but I haven't seen that yet.
You knew Navarro would scramble. Why was he still able to be so effective?
Yeah, he's phenomenal. That was a big worry coming in that he had everybody covered, and there were times where kept him from going outside, but he duck inside and scramble, and he's just a phenomenal playmaker, and was no question he's pretty dynamic.
Any prognosis on Jaheim? Or?
No, I didn't. It didn't look good from the sidelines, but I haven't even talked to the medical staff yet, so I don't know what's going on.
When you lose a guy, when you lose him, I mean, how much did that change what you guys were trying to do then? Because that was still fairly early in that game.
Yeah, I think, obviously he's a great player, and so you lose some of his explosiveness, but we weren't executing even before then. So that's what again, that's my job. I take responsibility for a lack of execution. I thought we had 2 really good practices on Tuesday and Wednesday, and but that didn't show up today for sure.
How does the defensive effort come into this not being able to be a win? Because they forced turnovers, get plenty of opportunities. We missed a couple of tackles here and there, and they gave up just a couple things on third down, but they battled, they played hard, and played well enough for us to win. But when you lose, everybody loses, and like I said, we're going to take this and learn as much as we can from it.
Wrapping up here on this post-game edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast, Nick Farrell here alongside Sydney Cariel. We're brought to you as always by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination. West Virginia falls to 1-1 overall after a 17-10 loss at Ohio. And of course, the Bobcats do get a victory over a Power 4 opponent 1 week after falling 3 points short at Rutgers. Ohio does it at home, 17-10, in front of a record crowd at Peden Stadium. So, Sid, it was mentioned by Coach Rodriguez. We just heard from him about the urgency needed from West Virginia, because you go from week 1 not knowing anything about your team. You go to week 2 and you say, okay, we know a little bit. We don't know a lot after beating an FCS opponent. And we know that the next team we're going to face is a team that we cannot overlook because they won 11 games last year and were the champions in their conference. Now you play the game that West Virginia fans have circled long before Coach Rodriguez was back, right? Like these backyard brawl games, this 4-game series, which is coming to an end here in 2025, has been circled by WVU fans for years, right?
Yeah.
And the element of Rodriguez's return just makes it a little bit sweeter, a little bit more intriguing. There absolutely has to be a sense of urgency after a performance like the one today, because WVU has a lot of things to figure out. What's it going to do if Jaheim White can't play next week? What's it going to do at quarterback? What's the best solution there? Can the offensive line be more productive and create better passing opportunities or holes for the run game, whoever it is at running back? Definitely on the offensive side, a lot of things are going to have to be addressed again in practices this week.
Yeah, no, agreed. And you can hear the players post-game over on our website or YouTube channel, but KK Tarnu and Ben Cutter both said, I think it was maybe their first or second question, they both were like, we know how big next week is. It's, one of those games no one needs to be told. So everyone in that locker room is fully aware that things need to change, and they need to change like that. There's no time to sit and dwell on this loss because there's a big game in 7 days.
Yeah, and remember, it's not just Pitt, right? I mean, yeah, that's a huge game, but it's Big 12 play immediately after that. It's Kansas on the road at a brand new stadium. It's Utah at home. It's at BYU on a Friday night. The gauntlet for West Virginia is extremely tough, and WVU has a lot to figure out in the coming days here before that gauntlet continues. Well, Sid, we're going to let you go here because I know you guys have a lot to do and a long ride ahead of you tonight. Thanks for all your hard work today. Appreciate you jumping on the show with us.
Always. And hopefully next time it's more smiles on the show. We like positivity.
Absolutely so, especially because our show is presented by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, home of the same-day smile. Look at Sydney Cariel getting those shameless plugs in. Sid, thanks.
No problem.
All right, that's a wrap on this edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. We'll have complete coverage over on our website, goldenbluenation.com. As Sydney mentioned, you can listen to post-game interviews from KK Tarnu and Ben Cutter on our website. You can also read Cody Nesper's game recap of today's contest. And we'll, of course, bring you coverage on Tuesday during the team's weekly media session, where we expect to get several updates on some personnel that left the game, including running back Jaheim White. That's a wrap on this post-game edition of the Golden Blue Nation podcast. I invite you to join us next week as we recap the Backyard Brawl. You can listen wherever you get your shows or watch us now in video form. That's right, video post-game shows available at goldenbluenation.com, the free Golden Blue Nation app, and the Golden Blue Nation YouTube channel. For Sydney Cariel, I'm Nick Farrell signing off. Thanks for being with us. We're brought to you as always by Mountain State Oral and Facial Surgery, your premier dental implant destination.